So, let's start off with you, Juan, because, I mean, the thing is, we've been discussing today how Vietnam's become, once again, a hub, it's a magnet for investment. What's changed? Because, I mean, people did get their fingers burnt not too long ago.
That's right. Well, I think overall there's this emerging picture of stabilization with the Vietnamese economy. Although, as Angie and I have talked earlier, there is still some ongoing problems that Vietnam needs to address. But overall, the economy has been stabilizing. You've seen inflation, which, a couple of years ago was double digits.
That's 20%, about 21%.
Yeah. Even higher. And now it's down at 5%, and the government is very devoted, very committed to keeping it low. You've also seen the currency, which they did devalue just recently in June. But, that before, there were a series of devaluations earlier, just a couple of years ago, and now they're moderating it. They're setting expectations.
Slow down the devaluation.
Exactly,
yes.
which really also helps. And overall, I mean, it is a picture of growth, right? Yeah. I mean, it's not for Vietnam. They're expecting 5.8% growth. Yeah. The World Bank says it's probably more likely 5.4%. But still, if you look at other markets, where do you get that kind of growth and the kind of demographics that Vietnam has? Right?
Yes, I mean, labor cost is still very competitive, and the market still have a lot of attractions. And I have to say, also be aware, I think I agree with Rish. I think the banking system also have a potential lot of bad debts there. And the currency weakness obviously reflecting not only inflation, but also potential financial risk. But a balanced gain and the return, obviously, I think this is a frontier market. Obviously, for the people who are brave, ready to jump in. I think the market has been performed recently, I think.
How far have you jumped in?
We are not advising our clients to jump into this frontier market because we don't have enough kind of the confidence yet. We'd rather put our money into mature market like the U.S. I mean, they have been doing well apart from recent correction. We also add in like a Canadian market, which is going to benefit from U.S. recovery.
Yep.
And also, if the energy price keep high, Canada will benefit as well.
But some would argue those yields are going away. If you want high returns, you got to take the risk.
Exactly. We balance the return and the risk. We look at the moderate risk we can take, but not a huge risk.
That is true. That for a lot of investors, that is certainly the feeling in terms of the sell-off and taking profit off the table at least.
Yeah, you don't want to put too many chips down at once. I was in Vietnam last weekend for a wedding, in fact, as we were talking off air. And the fact that you're such a young population that is really motivated and keen to work and keen to learn and willing to cooperate. It's a key difference from some of its peers, who shall remain nameless. I mean, it's a country that really seems to be on the rise, despite all of these challenges that remain.
Definitely, and you see the multinationals come in, right? I mean, Intel has made a big investment, billion-dollar investment that's going to continue down south where you were in Ho Chi Minh City, and we've also seen Samsung, right? Samsung's making big bets on Vietnam. They've got a couple facilities up north, and they're talking about opening up one down south as well. You've seen Nokia and lots of other big companies as well. So a lot of the multinationals, especially as they look away from diversifying away from China, right?
But the Chinese investment coming to
exactly.
Vietnam.
Exactly.
This is what happens, isn't it?
And one thing I would say, Vietnam labor force, I think, very disciplined compared with other peers.
Yes.
Very hard-working, disciplined. This is a great advantage, I think.
Okay, but that's traditional, moving up the value chain, diversifying away from China, and that's the thing, though, which is the oil rig in the room.
The 800-pound
Probably
gorilla
800,000
flash oil rig in the room.
Well, I think in the sense that China needs to make progress, move towards high value added. Because the labor intensive, China doesn't have much advantage anymore. The labor cost probably is, I think, twice or 3 times more expensive than Vietnamese manufacturing workers. I think China have to make such a progress. Otherwise, you're going to losing out to the Vietnam, Cambodia. You're talking about the labor cost also very competitive.
Well, speaking of China, I mean, we want to talk about this a little bit. There was this really interesting letter from Vietnamese leadership, at least within the ranks, about needing to separate itself from the Marxist ranks that it defines itself with China as it tries to find its own fate.
Definitely. I mean, you've always had kind of this love-hate relationship with China.
I mean, how many times have they been to war against each other? I mean, it's
oh my
insane,
goodness!
isn't it?
Right? How many thousands of years is really the question?
Period.
Right. Exactly.
We have long history of
yes,
thousands of years.
Exactly. Long history of animosity, but also long history of dependence as well. I mean, Vietnam depends on China for the raw materials, right, that it needs to then import goods, which right now, I mean, which it needs to export goods, and right now exports in Vietnam are doing really well. Because of the China tensions, there's a lot of concern in Vietnam. One, you know, you have to be less reliant on China economically, but two, also politically as well. There's obviously a lot of concerns there. I mean, what this letter is capitalizing on is obviously the tensions. There's a lot of concern within Vietnam that maybe Vietnamese leadership and the Communist Party specifically haven't stood up as much to China as it should have.
So are you saying that we could see an end to communism in Vietnam? I mean, this is, you would never hear this letter coming out of China.
It's interesting because I think what the letter shows is that there certainly is a lot of discontent, and now you're getting to the point where people feel like they don't have much to lose. They need to express that discontent. And you wouldn't have seen that earlier.
But tell me something, that's a strange phrase you used there. They have got nothing much to lose. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I guess you know, in the sense that, I mean, these people they're about 60 members of the Communist Party, right? I mean, but what's interesting about them is they're mostly retired folks, right? I mean, they are retired officials.
So they can speak their minds.
Exactly, they can now speak their minds. But you know, but what's interesting is even a couple years ago they never would have said anything. There's cohesion within the Communist Party was really, really important. But now you're seeing the breaks, right?
If there are rifts like this, Young Hao, does that change the game for you?
Well, overall, we do, as said, we need to diversify. That's why we look at the whole region on a regional basis. Obviously, the geopolitical risk has arisen. Not only China, tension between China and Vietnam, China and Japan, but look at the Middle East, look at the Ukraine, look at the Iraq, everywhere. Maybe apart from America, is a relatively safe place.
Yeah.
So in a sense, diversify. Make selective bets. That's why right now we overweight within the region. We have Korea, Taiwan, which will benefit from the U.S. recovery and also the tech edge. Outside of the Asia, we look at the U.S., Canada, and a certain degrees we still overweight in the Europe. Even we reduced our overweight on the Europe.